show in Amsterdam, so it's a very poor one. But there is a drawing preserved, an 18th century drawing of it in the Kunstkamera in Petersburg. This is the actual one Peter the Great purchased in Amsterdam from the collector of naturals and dealer in them, German-born Seba, who had established himself in Amsterdam in the end of the 17th century. Now, Willem Konijn, in 1687, sorry. Willem Konijn arrived in 1704, and given these two dates, the Adam and Eve cabinets were probably produced either from the last decade of the 17th century onwards or the first decade of the 18th century, but whatever the case, I assume that their production only lasted some 10 or 15 years because the absolute similarity in their imagery, although there are some differences in qualities. This is a cabinet, a similar one, but not with scenes of Adam and Eve in the Coburg Museum, and one with Adam and Eve in a private collection in the Netherlands. The Coburg cabinet is interesting because the type of carvings is quite similar, and there was a new mount made on it, silver mount in Coburg in 1716, so probably after its arrival, really. That gives also a date. Here's one in a private collection in Portugal, and here's, you see my fingers over there, or my gloves holding it. This is the inside of Sir Peter's cabinet, and you see a kind of seaweed pattern, at least spiraling twigs, and these you see on other cabinets where they totally cover its outside and sometimes occasionally also its inside. So we can group these cabinets together with the Adam and Eve cabinets. And as I told you, the ivory carvers are probably the same as the ebony carvers. This is the one of which I showed you the interior on the low part of the image. This is the exterior, and it's coming very close. I have come to an end of my lecture, or almost. We must round up. With the question, can we find back any civil architecture in Sri Lanka dating from the time of the making of these ivory cabinets and caskets? Can we find houses where we think there may have been carvings working there? Well, I must say hardly. This is Colombo's Coveted district in the southern part of the city, and there are so few remains of the ancient capital of Coveted. Actually, these are the only two remains, two Dagobahs, which are supposed to be remnants of the mausoleum of King Parakrama Bahu VI of Coveted, one of the predecessors of King Bhuvaneka Bahu, who presented these caskets to King John of Portugal and his wife. Now, in Matara, the entrance to the fort is still there, however, later, because, as I said, the carvings for the Dutch ended in about 1700, but the harbors the Dutch had under control remained under Dutch control till 1800, till Sri Lanka was colonized or taken over, whatever you call it, by the English. However, I'm not aware of any export cabinets made in the 18th century, and there is a kind of explanation. There was no more, well, the taste had changed in Europe. The taste had changed for curved furniture and so on, paneled with Japanese lacquerwork and so on. Anyway, coming back to Matra, there still are some remains, but of course the pride, between quotation marks, of the Dutch presence in Sri Lanka is the city of Gaul. It's built in the 1660s. It's on UNESCO's World Heritage List as the best example of a fortified city built by the Europeans in South and Southeast Asia. And I must say, you still can imagine some person working doing their ivory carvings, because also the houses are very well preserved in the fort. Now, very little remains in Jaffna. Well, we all know that the city suffered greatly during the war between the Sri Lankan government and the Tamil Tigers. Present restorations are, of course, going on happily, and the entrance to the fort still stands, although rather damaged. Finally, as one may expect, hardly any of the cabinets and caskets with Adam and Eve are preserved in Sri Lanka. Actually, they were all made for the export, for European customers. Yet, in the Museum of Brigham University in Kandy, there is an Adam and Eve cabinet, and that's on the top. I'm afraid I've never seen it. I only know it from an old publication. At the right, you see a panel which is on display, a panel of such a cabinet which is on display in the Dutch Heritage Museum in Colombo, and Dutch Period Museum it is called, which is actually housed in one of the few remaining houses in the city of the Dutch time. And yeah, perhaps few of these Adam and Eve cabinets were made for Dutchmen or even Sri Lankan collectors because of this so-called fusion of East and West, as Adam and Eve were supposed to have lived with all their children in Murugilya mountain. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was a wonderful lecture. If you'd like to have I think you should have a seat, and if there are any questions, maybe you could use the microphone there. Have a seat. Is that working? Any questions or comments? May I start with one then? With a question?
Please.
There was an important Zurich exhibition at the Rietberg Museum that you referred to, which aligned up all these early ivory cabinets with the jewels and the rubies and everything like that. What conclusion of Anne-Marie Jordan's did you disagree, and how would, if you could just give me in a nutshell, what aspect of that exhibition or its catalog did you disagree with?
Yes, I already expected this this question. That mainly concerns with the dating of the Robinson casket, because the date of the birth of the heir to the Portuguese crown doesn't coincide with the conversion. So the dates don't fit, in my opinion. And in fact, Annemarie Jaffe, who made this excellent exhibition and most beautiful catalogue, has proposed what I told earlier, but she has revised her meaning. And I follow rather Annemarie Jaffe's meaning, but this is a little bit over the head of our dear audience.
No, I'm curious.
Yeah.
So this is the casket. So you propose a date of around circa 1550. Okay, good.
Yeah.
This is what we do.
It's not because of the bagpipe players, as you understand. It's the next image.
Yep. Any other questions or comments? Yes.
So when one of these caskets was delivered from one king to the other, I'm just curious, was it empty? Was it delivered with a lot of pomp and circumstance? Was it filled with jewels? Any ideas?
what was in the casket. It's pretty well documented.
Yeah, but I don't remember really.
Nothing.
No.
They're empty.
Yeah, yeah, I don't remember
ceremonies are
that their
recorded.
contents were listed. Again, this author, Dr. Jordan, has consulted sources, inventories of the time, and I don't remember that she mentions from the sources any content. I have to add to well, anyway, I have to add that the present which Mr. van Spilbergen gave the King of Candy was really so cheap. Yeah, I mean, we don't know, as I told you, what King John had a kind of presents for the ambassador of the Cotter realm, but can you imagine an engraving? Take a painting by Rembrandt with you. Well, he wasn't born then, but anyway, take something precious with him. But he just gave this engraving. Anyway, the Dutch way, I suppose.
Now, Ebeltje, I'd appreciate it if you would refrain from criticizing the Dutch as a nationality.
Oh, sorry, yes.
Any other questions? I hear.
Considering Sri Lanka's lawn is also known for its gemstones and semi-precious stones, I'm just curious why there's so little, or just from the pictures, or so little of them being inlaid or used with these caskets.
Well, this is mere speculation, but I have two reasons, I think. One is that at the time these cabinets were made for the Dutch market, especially in the late 17th century. The time of the Kunst- und Wunderkammer was a little bit over. Actually, Tsar Peter the Great was one of the later creators of them. When you had the earlier ones, the 16th century ones, there you had the wonders of the world, but also very precious wonders of the world. That's one reason that I think might be an answer. The other reason is that the Dutch really, apparently didn't see a market for these for these sapphires. Oh, well, they did see. Oh, I know. Yes, I know from other sources that separate bags of sapphires and other stones from Sri Lanka were taken by sailors, by Dutch entrepreneurs, but they're separate stones and sometimes set in jewels. No, no more. No, we have to accept it as a fact.
I think that's absolutely right. There's a shift in taste, and you see several shifts in taste here away from the jewel casket to stones as commodity for the Dutch actually to resell elsewhere. They would sell to the rest of Europe to set as jewelry. And then also this taste, I think you put this extremely well, I think it's a very important point, that ivory carving of this preciousness simply dies out. There's more of a need for wooden furniture, for a different kind of severity. We have a shift from the Renaissance to the Baroque to the 18th century. I think we witnessed these two shifts, and I find that quite remarkable. Yeah, very well put.
A very simple question. Some ivories yellow faster than some others. What's the reason?
There's actually it doesn't yellow over age, it whitens. And this is one of the strange things about ivory as an organic substance, is that exposure to light does not make it darker, it makes it brighter. So actually ivory that's been in the dark and highly controlled situations preserved will begin to yellow and turn brown. And exposure to light will bleach it. So what you see with a dark, I'm sorry, Ebeltje, I'm answering for you, but when you see dark and yellow ivory, you're not, it's actually a better preserved example in many cases. So it's because it's organic, it bleaches, and it's exactly the opposite from paper or from many other kinds of substances where light makes it go brown. In ivory, it's almost the opposite. Of course, the light also has a detrimental effect of cracking sometimes. If something dries out, it will damage in other ways, but the color you can actually change the color of ivory by exposure to light.
May I add a little thing? An Adam and Eve cabinet, as we call them, was discovered some time ago in the Moluccan Islands, where apparently a Dutch minister had taken it already very early. There's quite a story about it. It's a kind of heirloom of Tanimbar. But it was, in the end, it was only, well, in the 1960s, it was taken to the Netherlands, and it was only auctioned, say, some 8 years ago in the Netherlands. It was completely brownish yellow, because it was such a heirloom, and it was always preserved in the dark.
I have a couple of questions, actually.
Just one, please. Just one. We have to go. We're running.
Okay. The pierced carvings that you're talking about, now we see them in the southern regions, whereas in the Jaffna region, they all seem to be more flatter like this. Is that because of the skills of the artist? And the second question, I'll throw it in, is the dating. How are you dating them? Stylistically or carbon dating, or what kind of dating technique?
Well, for these rather recent radiocarbon dating doesn't work really. Actually, I don't know if ever it has been tried. But what I propose here is a rather hypothesis that I want to try out. But there's one thing that I'm sure about, and that's the casket with the peninsula of Mathura. Why should it not have been made in Mathura, since Mathura was well known for its carvings? That's pierced carvings. An indication of its date may have been the emblem of the King of Kandy, and then we come to the 1640s. And from that on, I try to make a group of them. I have trouble with my group of the Adam and Eve cabinets. They are not pierced. I don't see many similarities with what I consider as, say, the pseudo-South Indian style, the Tamil work. So I don't know. And it's up to you to come with a new proposition.
May I just say that what we've witnessed or heard here is unpublished work which has tried to make sense in terms of regions and dates that has flummoxed scholars for a very long time. So may I conclude by saying we're very grateful that you've come all this way to share some of your new observations. I don't think I'm exaggerating that say this is a new look, because we have a shift between the Portuguese and the Dutch, between North and South Sri Lanka, between a shift in taste. And I myself found that many of these circumstances and bits and pieces of evidence very convincing. So thank you very much, Ebeltje, for your contribution. Okay.